I had a thought yesterday. I was going to sort of finish or have a rest of Joshua. Now, I felt like there's something in Elijah in the cave. But then I read Joshua 10 and I'm thinking, actually, they go hand in hand to what stuck with Joshua. So Joshua, we stay. And funny enough, the message is almost exactly the same, which is very interesting. So, a while ago I started a series. It started off as Christian basics, but then it sort of transgressed into experiencing the Christian life, ... better, stronger, fuller, whatever applies to you or to me. And we started off in the Hebrews, and then sort of went over to Joshua, and we stayed with Joshua for the time being. And we will stay for as long as I feel that is important to that sort of series. Now my pretext to this series is, when you come to my house, where would you expect to eat? And the answer is always not in the front room by the front door. But you would hope I will let you into the dining room, wouldn't you?
Unless you're doing a barbecue outside.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. But the truth is that when we start our Christian journey, we go through the front door of the house of God. But we stay there. And we go, is that it? Well, unless you move on, yes, that's it. So it's up to us to actually move into the house and explore the rooms. God is a God who wants to give giving. And Joshua is the perfect book to show that. God is a God who wants to keep on giving and giving and giving. Okay? The next one is, and that goes back to Esther. We are where we are for a time such as this. Okay? We're meant to be where we're meant to be for a time such as this. We may not like it, and often, or sometimes we don't, but that's it. We are where we are for a time such as this. But that goes hand in hand with Revelation 3. What he opens, no one can shut. What he shut, no one can open. We spend much of our lives banging our head against closed doors for nothing, because we refuse or don't want to go into the open ones. Because we may not like it there, or we may want something different there. So our job is to know when the door opens or closes, go through the right door. Because he also says in the same chapter, see, I have placed before you an open door. The point is, go through it. Being a Christian and wanting the Christian experience to the full, one thing I will promise you, it's not going to be easy or comfortable. Okay? If you're looking for easy and comfortable, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. Okay, so I'll give you a pre-warning here. If you want to live Christian life, it's going to be uncomfortable, uneasy, difficult. Bring you to the end of all your strength sometimes, I think is right to say as well. Questioning yourself a lot. But if you stick with it, perseverance, what do you call it? Pressing in is new recipe. Pressing in is Charles' pet phrase here. If you keep on pressing in, keep on keeping on, as the Americans say. It is worth it. So, Joshua so far is officially the first book of the prophets according to the Jewish Bible. We have seen promises, a lot of promises from God. I will give you all this territory, no one will be able to stand against you, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Yeah. And I know as Christians we quote those promises a lot to each other. We've seen quite a few miracles. There were the initial ones of the crossing the Jordan, with the river being dry, the riverbed being dry for like 35 miles. We've seen the fall of Jericho. There's a lot about obedience, of word we don't always like so much in Christian circles. God loves us, yeah, great. Obedience, whoa. So yeah, obedience. Because he says in chapter 1, before his promises, I will never leave you nor forsake you. No. As long as you obey my commands. Yes. But there's a correlation there, no? You know, yes, I said earlier we don't have to do anything. Obeying his commands is good, because otherwise we fall foul of the love of God and we're not there anymore. So it's important. Lots of people don't like Joshua because there's a lot of goriness and death in it. People being killed left, right and centre. And it makes, understandably, people feel uncomfortable. It's not a nice read. It's important to remember the people that are being killed are people who are very, very mean to each other and bad. So there is sin there, a lot of sin. And if you read actually what sin they commit, you probably go, ooh, I would have killed them too, in all honesty. But it's not about genocide, it's not about them having to die. It's about sin, it's about illustration of Judgment Day, but also the fact, and people like Rahab remind us of that if they had repented, they need not have died. That if that is an important one to remember, is actually, if you have repented, the second you repent, death is gone, and life comes to you through Jesus. That is very important. We've seen mistakes, and Joshua's very honest about his mistakes. He doesn't hold back, he doesn't try and hide them. He fails to inquire of the Lord a few times. It means that Achan's sin doesn't go uncovered and they lose a battle. It means that he has a treaty he shouldn't have had with the Gibeonites. And he has to learn the hard way that actually inquiring of the Lord is a good thing to do first, not second. It's a good thing for us because very often we see, and we see, not necessarily the Bible says, all the people in the Bible as unfollowable. Well, they're not. They make mistakes. It's good to actually read about them, how they had to learn from them, because then we don't put them on a pedestal and think, oh, we can never aspire to that. Well, they're just like you and me. They're human. They make mistakes. Good thing is they're very honest about writing them. We're now in chapter 10, and we started chapter 10 last time. And chapter 10 has more miracles in it. In fact, probably one of the biggest miracles ever. The longest day ever. A 2-day-long day. A victory, despite officially not supposed to having a victory. And we'll look at that a bit more in a minute. And in all sense, the big book of Joshua, with all its goriness and all its death, is actually a book of good news. For the sinner, repent and you will live. For the believer, God really is the most powerful. And he can do anything. Yeah. In each case, choose Jesus. Yeah. So, I'm not going to read all of chapter 10 this time. I'm going to read sections. If you want to open chapter 10 for the Bible, please do. I won't have the text with me today. And if we start on the first 5 verses of chapter 10. Now Adoni-Tzedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had taken Ai and totally destroyed it, took to Ai and its king, as he had done to Jericho and its king. And that the people of Gibeon had made a treaty of peace with Israel and had become their allies. He and his people were very much alarmed at this, because Gibeon was an important city, like one of the royal cities. It was larger than Ai, and all its men were good fighters. So Adoni-Tzedek, king of Jerusalem, appealed to Hoham, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Yarmut, Yafia, king of Lachish, and Davir, king of Eglon. Come and help me attack Gibeon, he said, because it has made peace with Joshua and the Israelites. Then the 5 kings of the Amorites, the kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Yarmut, Lachish, and Eglon, joined forces. They moved up with all their troops, and took position again, keeping them tucked in. You can have next slide, please. Now, the pretext here is this. I actually took 2 attempts to conquer. The first they lost because of Achish's sin, and for those looking at the battles, it gave them hope. Oh, they're not completely infallible. There's a drink in the round, maybe we have a chance. So what they do is they gather those 5 kings, join together into one. That was a vast army, right? And Joshua must have gone, that's not good news. What do I do now? Not only that, his army was tired. They just had 2 or 3 battles. They were on their feet, they needed some rest. And there was this vast army coming towards them. And we feel that way sometimes, right? Problems keep pouncing on us, and one after the other. They don't come one you solve it, the next one you solve it. It's not like an organized filing system. It's not Excel one file after the other. It's and you go, what do I do now? Next slide, please. When I preached on John, there was this image John gave of a Greek psychological, philosophical conundrum called Plato's Cave. Don't even remember much of it, but it's simple. In simple terms, is you have a group of people. Start here, right? And they've been in that cave for as long as they can remember. All they have is the light in this fire, and people behind them walk around with some images, and those images are projected to the wall. So all they see is shadows, right? And his argument was, what would happen if you helped these people escape into the real world? How many of them would cope with that? And how many of them wouldn't? And John sort of painted that picture in comparing Christianity. If people live in sin, right, and you get them out of the real world, how much of them cope with Christianity? The truth is, as we have found out in this church as well, not everybody does. Okay? People seek the comfort of the not knowing of darkness sometimes more than they seek the light. Which is quite a depressing thought, but it's the truth. But there's something else with the cave. What happened to Elijah when he got disappointed and when he lost hope? He retreated into the cave. Okay? And then God came to him and said, what are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I've been very zealous for you, but the Israelites have rejected you and your covenant. They've torn out everything. They killed all the prophets. I'm the only one left, and I'm ready now. Right? And God in the end said, no, go back. Your place is not in the cave. Your place is out there where you just come from. But it is so easy, though, isn't it? When things overwhelm us, when the problems of the world, when our day-to-day lives, is health, jobs, whatever it is, money, come over us and we go, oh, time to go to the cave again. And yet, then God will come and say, Hannes, what are you doing here? I've had enough, I'm hiding. No, you're not, go! And I actually know that very well. The last 4 months have been quite difficult. For those who don't know, I changed jobs after 20 years. In what I thought would be a more easy job. It's been anything but a more easy job. And it has brought me to the brink of questioning myself, and then you actually start questioning God as well, don't you? You really that job that you've given me? Is really what you thought I should be doing? I think you got it wrong. That ain't working out. And God's saying, don't worry about it, I've got it. Really? I see that you've got it. It's like, God, don't worry, Hannes. But it's so easy to do. I think we've all been there at some stage. Tell the next slide, please. What does Joshua do? Okay. Verse 7. So Joshua marched out from Gilgal with his entire army, including all the best fighting men. The Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you. So, Joshua chose to go out of the cave and follow what God said. Now, Gilgal to Givon is roughly 20 miles. Okay? You try and walk all night, 20 miles, with all your battle gear on, and then start a fight. Now, the biggest walk I did in the army was 50k, which is 30 miles, with all my gear overnight. At the end of that, I could not walk. He said to me, okay, there's a fight for the next 48 hours. And I would say, yeah, right, off you go, bye. They were absolutely on their feet. They wouldn't have been able to move. Right? The fact that they were able to actually move in itself is a miracle. Let alone get victory. They were literally they would have been on their knees. And that's from personal experience. But then we also have the longest day. So we have a victory out of the complete impossible. A vast army which is bigger than them, there on their knees, having walked all day, needing an extra day of daylight to conquer it all. But yet God worked for them. It's a victory out of the impossible. So, when we're there and saying, well, God, I don't think you've got it, or I want to be in a cave, think back to that, because it's a victory out of the impossible. Now, not only that, if things hadn't changed, Joshua would have to go to Jerusalem, to Yarmut, to Azekah, to Eglon, Lachish, Hebron, and conquer them one by one. Right? And because they got together and tried on, he did that all in one go. It actually played into his hand. It was one campaign, not 5, 6 separate ones. So, next slide, please. That's a famous quote of Churchill. Okay? Never give in. Never, 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 never. In nothing great or small, large or petty, never give in except to conviction of honouring God's sins. Never yield to force, never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. That's what it says it all, isn't it? Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy. So, when we're about to go to the cave, remember that. Never give in. That's what Joshua did. And maybe that's one of the lessons we need to take away today. Is whatever we face, how much we sometimes doubt that God's really in it and that's where we're supposed to be. Never give in, because if He told you that's where you're supposed to be, doesn't matter how bad it looks, that's where you're supposed to be. So, let's take stock for a second. Where are we now individually in our impossible situations? In those situations we want to give in, we want to hide in the cave. Because I believe we all have one or two of them. I know I do. And I know I keep talking to Him, and He keeps me going. But where have we seen God work in it? Because sometimes it's very easy to look at the whole picture and say that's not working, and forget the small victories you have that God's helped you. And sometimes you have to actually look back, maybe with somebody else, and say, okay, and then say, okay, what's been happening? You go, well, so-and-so was healed, and this happened, and we had dinner on the table yesterday, and this came through, and you're thinking, and you say, God's not working. But it's very easy to miss those things. To not see the wood for the trees, and the trees for the wood, if you better. So it's very important to actually check, where is God in our situation? Because it's so easy to miss Him. Okay, next slide, please. Right. Unfortunately, that's not the version of Bible you have, other than maybe best, but going on, verse 16. The 5 kings had fled and hidden in the cave of Makkedah. When Joshua was told that 5 kings had been found hiding in the cave of Makkedah, he said, roll large rocks up to the mouth of the cave and put some men to guard it. But don't stop. Pursue your enemies. Attack them from the rear and don't let them reach the city, for the Lord has given them into your hand. Now that is a very, very good strategic mindset. And maybe something that we need to look at ourselves. Because that won't stand me, got to be honest. I had to reflect. And I have to reflect further, because that's something I don't think we do. The only other person who did that was actually Churchill in the North African War, when they had beaten Rommel. And the admirals were about to sort of settle down and said, no, keep going. Now we get them for once and for all. And there's a question of not losing momentum, right? It's a question of if they get back to the cities, they regroup, and we have to fight them again. So the whole exercise now was for nothing, because we have to do that again. But how often do we do that? We reach a point and say, oh, it's done, and we just stop. And had we kept going, we would have had complete victory. So I'm actually not sure what it looks like, because I can't say, oh, we've all done it. I think it's a thing that we all miss. Okay? It's very easy to miss. We go so far. And I was thinking, okay, let's have a sport analogy here. And probably football is the good one for the negative. The most boring matches seem to be World Cup finals. Because they get the first goal in, and rather than actually solidifying victory by getting 3 more, they bunker in. Right? Now what happens, the other ones who score a goal, they have to start again. And so cricket, on the other hand, next slide please, is slightly opposite. I'm not sure many of you are cricket fans here, but one of the objects of the first innings is to create so many runs you don't have to bat again. And to make the others, and to get the others out for less than you scored in the first innings. So they have to bat twice, but you only once. That is solidifying your victory, right? Or worst case scenario, you go out and bat for 10, 15 runs and then you've got it. That's probably the best sporting examples I can think of in terms of creating a complete victory. Next slide is. So if that line in the sand is the point where you know you've got victory, our inclination is to just get over it and go, right, I can rest now. But actually, the idea is to go on and keep going, not stop there. And if that is the only point we take away from today, I think it's the most important one. It's actually, when you think we've got victory, keep going. Because that's the point where you're really going to get victory. Otherwise, you're just going to have to do it again. So, let's move on. Next few verses, Joshua and Israel defeated them completely. Then the next few verses, they go back to the cave in Makkedah, get the 5 kings out. In verse 24, when he had brought his kings to Joshua, he summoned all the men of Israel and said to the army commanders who had come with him, come here and put your feet on the necks of these kings, so they came forward and placed their feet on the necks. Joshua said to them, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. This is what the Lord will do to all the enemies you're going to fight. Right, next slide, please. These are the promises of Joshua 1. Okay? No man will be able to stand before you. as long as you live. Be strong and courageous, be not be terrible to dismayed. What has he just said to his commanders? Exactly the same thing. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, be strong and courageous. The Lord will do this to all your enemy. Right? He has just repeated the promise of God to him. And when we preach Joshua 1, we all say it's promises for everybody, not just for Joshua. And there he repeats it. Now, who does he repeat it to? Not been listening? Who does he repeat it to? His commanders, thank you. Now, his commanders, what happened to their fathers? Anybody? What would have happened to their fathers?
Would have died in the wilderness.
Well done, thank you very much, Helen. They would have wandered the desert for 40 years in the wilderness. Why?
They didn't obey. Well,
because they did not believe and trust God would give them the land. And where was that? Next slide, please. At Kadesh Barnea, or Kadesh Barnea. That's how far they got. And from here to here, it took 40 years. Just think that about it as well. 40 years. So, it was very important for Joshua to make that promise for two things. He wanted to give him the courage to keep going, because the next bit we won't read, he actually destroys those 5 cities of those 5 kings. And those cities, except Jerusalem, don't mean much to the modern reader or the modern day Israel either. So I will go past that. But also to sort of restate the fact that you can trust the Lord. Because their fathers, 40 years earlier, did not. And only Joshua and Caleb did. It's very important for Joshua to make sure his commanders are aware where they're standing. Because when we go to verse 40, it says this. Joshua subdued the whole region, including the country, the hill country, the Negev, the western foothills and the mountain slope, together with all the kings. He left no survivors. He totally destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua subdued them from where? Kadesh Barnea. So Joshua subdued them from here all the way up there. So that's a 40-year cycle. 40 years ago they were there, they walked all the way around, and Joshua and his army went back down here and conquered the land. It's a picture a bit like Jonah. Jonah, when he came out of the whale, still had to go to Nineveh. Right? You may think that the grass is greener somewhere else and choose not to go through the door that God's given you. But guess what? 40 years later, you'll be back. 40 years later, you'll be back. So, inquire of the Lord, please, before you leave one room and go through the next door. Because you may be going through the wrong door. I'm not saying that it works in any case. I certainly have to do some searching there, because I think that I was about to go back and go through the wrong door. Because your Kadesh Barnea may be through a different door, but the same circumstance. Okay? The truth is, unless you start trusting the God here, you always come back to there to do it again. Next slide, please. But on the good note is, if you think back and think how often God has turned your difficult situation, sin, backsliding, doubt, fear, whatever else, into great victories. And how often he will keep on doing that. God is a God who wants to keep giving. it's not God who stops giving. It's us who stop trusting Him to give. Okay? It's us who stop God giving it to us. So let's not do that, please. Yeah. And Lord, I just want to thank you, first of all, for the book of Joshua, for actually showing how much we can trust you. But also knowing that actually, without trusting you, we can't get anywhere. Because all we do is wandering in circles. Lord, open our eyes to trust you. And I know that might come with health warnings of actually getting into situations where we have to trust you. But we need our eyes open to trust you. Lord, there is nothing more powerful. There is no way more powerful than you are. And you can do everything. And we thank you. Amen.